going to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from here, and this has been like a therapy session.
Oscar Bevis, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Francis Rowan joins me. Francis, thank you for giving me some of your time. Yeah, it's a really, really big fight week, and it has that big fight week feel. You know, when you just see a fighter that you've seen, well, in my aspect, just seen on TV, and all of this with Beterbiev, big entourage around him. He's nice. I don't know, it just has a massive fight feel there.
It's good. It's a really good feeling. You're right. It's one of those.
Does it feel surreal when you're around fights and you're like directly involved?
It does, because you have to be a big fan to be of what we do. You have to be a boxing fan to enjoy what you do, because it's obviously it's very tough. It's a hard slog. I'm sure you'll feel the same. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a lot of travelling. It's a lot. It's a lot of organisation. It's a lot of dedication. But when something like this comes off, and you've got someone who will go down as a legend of the sport in Beterbiev, sitting, you're working with these guys, and then on Saturday you get the privilege to sit ringside and watch the guy you promoted, and worked with for all these years in Anthony Yarde, have the chance to fight him and beat him. It is a bit surreal, but it's a privilege. It really is.
We're going to get to, like you said, sit there and watch the fight. As everyone's kind of saying, are we going to get to sit there and watch probably about 12 or 15 minutes? I know Frank said, I think they sent the judges home.
That was Bob. Bob said it saves the money and sending judges home. Listen, you've seen stranger things in boxing. You might surprise everybody. It might go longer than everyone expects. But I fancy it's a bit of a shootout. Obviously, both guys can box, but I don't think it'll be much. I just don't know. I fancy
boxing fans always, because it's the most entertaining way to kind of look at a fight, is who's going to hit who first, and it's the boxing fans are always going to ignore the rest.
It reminds me a bit of his Hey Macronelli, actually. It's kind of like, we called that bombs away. It's who lands first, and both guys are going to, Anthony's got a good chin. I'm sure, Arthur's, I think, been over a couple of times. You just don't know, do you? I think, obviously Anthony's coming as an underdog, but he's got nothing to lose. He's just going to go in there and he's going to do what he does. And I fancy this to be a 4 to 6 rounder, and I fancy Anthony Yarde to cause a massive shock.
Yeah, it would kind of be destiny, and I spoke to a lot of people about this, because Anthony's kind of had his team ripped apart and his characteristics questioned, even though the Kovalev defeat was as ballsy as you can get after the first Lyndon Arthur defeat. They've kind of come under more scrutiny than most teams, really, in British boxing. So for them to win a world title, 3 world titles on Saturday night, would kind of be like a real destiny sort of story.
Well, I think it would be a real, it would be a real good, real good feel-good story as well. Tunde and Anthony, they're not just it's not just coach and fighter. They've been together a long, long time, and when there were calls from social and whoever, and people slagging Tunde off and saying this, that, and the other about Anthony should change teams, they stuck to their guns, they knuckled down, they got on with it, and now they've got the fantastic opportunity. I don't think they'll ever say to prove everybody wrong, but to prove they were right.
Let's talk about the undercard. The Itauma brothers, obviously, kind of the key highlight. We do have a good flyweight fight, but I've got to talk about the Itauma brothers. First title fight for Carol. Moses making his long-awaited professional debut, and I suppose kind of 2 massive stars that not just Queensberry as a company, but I suppose British boxing could really rely on to do really well in this sport.
Well, I think we'll start with Carol. He's had a really, really good couple of first years. 9 fights in just over, I think it'll be in 26 months. Really, he had a good last year. 2 stadium fights. I think in the other 2 fights he had total 4 knockouts. And the preparation he's had for this 10-rounder, the opponent we brought in for the 8-rounder at Tottenham, took him 8 rounds. They were 8 tough rounds. Didn't panic, didn't rush his work, and ended up getting a stoppage. So I thought that was perfect preparation, fantastic matchmaking, I have to say. But it's really, really put him in good stead, and you can see in his demeanour, in his the way he talks about his preparation with Carol. He prepared for that 8-rounder as if it was a title fight, because he knew this was coming up. So I think you'll see an even better performance on Saturday against a guy who has been in there with some of the top names in the light heavyweight division currently. he's 28 and 10, so he's got experience on his side. But I really fancy Carroll to continue his rise and to put on a good performance. I fancy him to get a stoppage again, another stoppage.
And in terms of Moses, obviously I know a lot of the things that kind of have been headlines around him are things that he has said. But it must come with a bit of pressure. And I can imagine he will sit there on Saturday night in the change room and think, fuck, this is really starting. Because that whole youngest world heavyweight champion thing, it's not something you can throw about. We all know how ridiculously talented he is. But do you reckon it might set in on Saturday and he'll be like, shit, this is the start of it all now?
I think it's there, actually. I think the workout yesterday was kind of like, oh my God, look, there's all these people here. We had a pressure a couple of weeks back, but it still felt like a mile off. The 28th of Jan. He's ready for it. You can see again in his attitude and the way he's handling himself that he's more than ready for this. I think the fact he's actually got a fight lined up. Compared to the amateurs, when it was only a competitions, and even sometimes he got to competitions and people would just fly home when they saw him. This is professional boxing. He's in a fantastic environment and fighting on a great undercard with his brother also fighting for his first title. I think the stars are aligning for him. Obviously, there's a long way to go to get to that ambitious declaration of beating Mike Tyson's 30-year-old record, but it's possible. And he's an 18-year-old lad with a dream, and Saturday's the first step to realising that dream.
Yeah, I can't wait for what's going to be an exciting and active very couple of years. I just want to kind of get your thoughts on Eubank Smith. It's weird because it's not a surprise that Liam Smith won, but I think kind of the method, it just took everyone back, seeing Eubank in that state.
Yeah. I did fancy Liam on points. I've got a betting slip to prove it. Listen, it was a great fight. A great build-up. A great atmosphere. It proved and a spectacular finish. I just think a good boxing brain was always going to win on the night, and Liam definitely has one of those in abundance. It was what it was. I think Eubank had just come short against someone who's got a far better boxing brain than him. I was surprised. It was not a surprise. You can't be surprised when one of these guys hits the other one on the button that the fight finishes. But I did fancy Liam to be that, outfox him and outsmart him and win on points. But fair play to him, he finished it in style.
Is it kind of not surprising, perhaps, that there are questions surrounding Eubank? Yes, as we've just said, it was a fight that was always winnable for Liam Smith. It was never out of the question. But although Chris was doing well kind of up to that, is it kind of not a surprise it is being called into question once again? Because it seems like kind of with every Eubank defeat, he kind of does get called into question.
Yeah, because I suppose there's heavy pressure on his shoulders, but he didn't come up short again. So I don't really want to go on about it too much. We're here to talk about our show. I thought Liam Smith did fantastically well, and that's about all I've got to say on it.
Well, this isn't about your show, but I've got to ask you one more thing. Anthony Joshua, Jermaine Franklin, just your thoughts on that fight?
It's a good heavyweight fight. There you go.
But man, Francis, appreciate his time. Cheers, mate.
I'm going to share something with you that might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.